we just had our 36th Freihofer Saratoga Jazz Festival. It's also the 100th anniversary of the Freihofer Baking Company, and we thank you very much for all these years of support. I also want to thank members of the Brubeck family for being here today. Catherine who is Iola and Dave Brubeck's only daughter, who grew up with a gaggle of boys, brothers. So she's had stories to tell herself. Catherine Butler's son Daniel, and T.J. Snyder, who is Catherine's nephew. We also want to thank you. You're going to hear a little bit from Dave Nelnick. Now Dan is responsible for putting all this together. All the jazz, all the artists, all the talent. Today, we don't just celebrate the festival. We celebrate an important figure in the history of American jazz, and also an important figure in the history of this jazz festival. As we dedicate this star on the Walk of Fame for NEA Master Jazz Artist and Kennedy Center Hall of Fame honoree, Dave Brubeck. Many artists. But the last 2 weeks, we found a recording where Dave was collaborating with Tony Bennett, the star you'll see later on our stage. In fact, it was recorded for 1962. And this collaboration was very important because, as Tony Bennett says, this was the reason he continued to work with other jazz pianists. And I quote, "It's always a joy to perform with people that you've admired your whole life." That was what Tony Bennett said of Dave Brubeck. And admired we did. At Saratoga, we are fortunate to have had Dave Brubeck perform here 13 times. That's more than any other time any artist played on this stage. And with a crowd cheered to hear "Time Out," you have to remember it was the first single recording that ever sold 1 million copies in the jazz world. You know, the other thing that you may or may not know, that when that crowd would yell to Dave to play a tune, any piece of jazz music, he knew it. He remembered every piece he ever played. And he'd improvise a little, which was great, because that's the hallmark of jazz. But when he walked on that stage, I'll tell you what I saw. I saw the youngest man in this festival. His white hair would fly, his feet would tap, and his whole body would rock. And he'd get in the groove, and you'd all be there with him. His parents was palpable, and any of you who have ever met him would know he made you feel like you were the only person in the room. I have a signed photograph of Dave, and he said, "For Marcia, show me the way." But it was Dave who showed us the way, and he showed us how it was done. And he also paved the way for countless new jazz talent. Dave explains his connection with jazz far better than I can, and I quote, "One of the reasons I believe in jazz is the oneness of man that comes through the rhythm. The heartbeat is the same any place in the world. It's the first first thing you hear when you're born, even before you're born, and it's the last thing you hear as you leave this world. Now I'd like to introduce someone who knew Dave very, very well, and he's someone that's been our partner for many years. He's the president of Absolutely Live Entertainment, and he's our very, very special friend, Dan.
Thank you, Marcia, and thank you all so much for being here today. I first want to say that as a presenter and a person who works in this business, we have such an incredible opportunity to be with the artists and to get to know the artists and work with them. But I can tell you from our perspective and from the artist's perspective, the great joy that we have is to be able to do what we do for you. The energy that the audience gives us, the energy and the love that the audience do have for the artists is really what it's all about, and that's not nonsense. It's totally true. You guys keep coming back here to this festival every year, and all the other things that I do and the other presenters that like me do, and you keep us going. And we just love you all so much. And I just wanted to say that on behalf of my co-presenters and all of the artists that you've ever heard of. Thank you. I'd also like to thank Kathy and Daniel and the rest of their family, who, even though it wasn't an option of theirs, probably sacrificed a lot to allow Dave to be with us over and over and over again. Whether it was here in Saratoga, and for me personally at Carnegie Hall, Lincoln Center, in Newport, on the QE2, and many other places, it was always a joy and a great honor for me to be with Dave and his wife Viola. Fantastic people, the most friendly, the most wonderful, the most incredible people I've ever met. I just again wanted to say to the family, thank you for giving us him and him to us. Thank you so much. We're very excited to be here with all of you today to put the star here in the plaza, and I'm going to give you back to Marcia.
We're honored that the Brubeck family would allow us to pay tribute to this man who, this actually is an opportunity. The Star in the Walk of Fame allows us to remember him, pay tribute to him, to remember his contribution not only to this jazz festival and on this stage, but to the jazz world as well. Not only was he one of the greatest musicians in the world, he was also one of the most amazing people in the world. Without further ado, I'd like to announce the Star. First and foremost, husband, a father, and a grandfather. That was more important to him than anything. And from listening to you guys session, discovering Dave Brubeck, the man. If I had a buck for every time someone asked me what instrument do you play, I'd be very rich. I don't play an instrument. There are 7. I used to, don't now. Now that independence and that free spirit, probably the thing that Dave loved most, as he had an incredibly special place in his heart for his daughter, Catherine. We're very glad to have her here today, and I'm going to ask Catherine to come forward and say a few words.
For being here. This is like a family reunion. I never had the privilege to come to Saratoga, although I know my dad and my brothers have played here many times. But everybody at the SPAC and the whole organizer members have made me and my son and my family feel so welcome. It's been a beautiful festival. hasn't it? It's just been gorgeous. And I just feel like, even though I know I'm in upstate New York, I feel like there's like a southern hospitality vibe. You know, when I came in and I saw all the bricks and the beautiful buildings, I gotta talk fast, because it looks like a thunderstorm's coming. But one thing I noticed here is that everybody's so proud of this venue, and you really should be. And because there's so much freedom here, and so many choices, not just in the music, but where you can sit, and what you can bring, and what you need, and what you can sit on. I really like that. That's a very nice way that it's organized. And I know my dad liked it because it was laid back. And there were so many faithful music lovers that came year after year. And if anybody ever saw my dad play on stage, you know he was just flat out enjoying every minute of it.